minutes till 10:03, and then we'll go ahead and start. Just give some of the scragglers some time to join, but we'll start promptly at 10:03, okay? For those of you that just joined, we're going to start in about 1 minute, so just give a couple more people time to join here, and we'll go ahead and start promptly. Okay, everybody. I want to thank you for joining today. I realize everyone has busy days here, and I appreciate you taking the time today to join this webinar. Let me go ahead and show you how we can ask questions today. I'm running this webinar by myself pretty much today, so I will get to the questions towards the end, but I just do want to say that if you take a look at the box you have up in the upper right, we will or at least I will try to answer as many questions as I can. The big thing here too is if you take a look at the bottom, there's my email, alexv@netwoven.com, and feel free to send me any emails if you need any information regarding Nintex, and I'll be happy to address that personally if it involves proof of concept, or you need to see that you can, what the capabilities are that, for your specific scenario. Please feel free to reach out to me. So first off, let me go ahead and talk about who NetWoven is and why am I talking to someone from NetWoven and not Nintex. Nintex is partner driven. They do all their business through partners. NetWoven was founded in 2001, and I did work for Microsoft for many, many years, and a lot of the people that work at NetWoven were former Microsoft employees. And as you can see, we are a service provider as well as a Nintex partner. So we do work with a lot of companies in the Bay Area and around the world. If you take a look at some of the services, I do want you to know that we are a #1 premier partner for Nintex, but besides that, you can see that across the spectrum of technologies, we do cover a lot of different technologies and services related on the Microsoft platform. For myself here, if you take a look, Nintex is all I do here at NetWoven. I did work for Microsoft for almost 2 decades, working on a lot of different projects and working as a technology solution professional, as well as getting into geospatial solutions here, working on Google and Bing Maps. So done a lot of different types of projects. One thing I'm pretty proud of with our company is working with our customers. Our big push here is to really have a base of exceptional Nintex customer references. So if you take anything away from this, I can proudly say that all the customers that we worked with that have adopted Nintex have been very happy with it, and I'm happy to forward you any references that you need to talk to if you're trying to make a decision about Nintex. So with that, what I wanted to talk about here is productivity and time loss when you take a look at an information worker. So my guess is that most of you that are joining today have some kind of problem that you're trying to solve related to something with business process automation, a workflow, and converting from a manual process of either paper or email attachments. So when you take a look at one individual worker, whether it's in the blue here with personal productivity or collaboration in yellow there, you can see that the average worker spends over 40 hours a week doing these types of things. And these are all the things that Nintex can help bring in and make it more productive for people that are doing this type of work. When you take a look at the everyday processes, you might not think of these as being big time sinks as far as taking away a lot of time from individuals, as I showed you on that previous slide. But one thing you need to be aware of is when you start to multiply 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes or more per hour, per day, per individual, per employee, it starts to add up after a while. And one of the biggest problems that we have is when you're looking at the SharePoint platform for being able to automate business processes, if you were on something like InfoPath or you're using K2 or you're using some other product, these can be very expensive and also time-consuming development life cycles that usually land on the head of the IT professional. So one of the things we want to do is improve on these processes, and if you take a look at the reasons why, let's take, for instance, a scenario in HR where you might be doing employee offboarding or onboarding. There's a bunch of different things that if you actually can make a process flow and make sure that we can get out of the risk areas that you see here. So, we can save time, we can save money, and a lot of this is about mitigating risk to make sure that no one slips through the crack. I think if any of you have involved in HR scenarios, you've had situations where someone wasn't quite a fit, and it can be a very expensive ordeal to have to deal with those types of situations. So across the board, this kind of applies to any process. So for the demonstration today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tackle one workflow today and form, just to give you an idea of what Nintex can do and just kind of lay the groundwork for what can be done. So what we're going to do today in this demonstration is we have a SharePoint site, and what we want to be able to do is give our employees a way of saying when they're going to take time off. That time off, once they submit it in through the form, will actually go to a manager, and the manager can either reject it, like you see in this one branch in the left right here, or the manager approves it, and then we notify the employee that that's been approved. We can update the calendar or even a team calendar, and then we can integrate to the back end. So this is a very common scenario for a lot of different automations that we talk about, or business processes. So that's why I put up here at the top, you can see that I said automate pretty much any request with Nintex, and I'll get more specific about that as we move on. One thing I want you to take away from this is a very common scenario of using Nintex, and even though this is a simple case, I'm also going to show you an example of some much more complex multi-level approvals that need to be done, and talking the back-end systems and integration. So first off, before we get started here, let's just talk about the platform and what's included. So we have a workflow designer that allows us through the browser to easily drag and drop and create workflows. So this is number one. This is a no-code situation. This is not considered to be a developer's tool. This is meant to be, like I said, no-code and very simple to use, and we're just configuring action items. The great thing about this is all built on top of the Microsoft platform. So when you take a look at SharePoint, whether you have SharePoint on-premise or if you have SharePoint online in Office 365, this is going to work on both platforms. You can have hybrid situations where we have workflow actions that talk to either system and push and pull information and do notifications. On the form side of it, We also have the ability to create forms in a browser, and we can distribute those forms to the internet, to the intranet, and also to mobile applications. So when you're designing forms, you can you can specify where this form will live. Will it live only on the desktop internally within your firewall, or do we want to expose that form outside of the firewall, either through a URL, or we can put that into a mobile application. So that goes to this next branch over here on the upper right, where we can create a mobile application form, and the users can fill out that information and also kick off a workflow that's associated with it. So each one of your employees can have a form where they can do expense reports, do time off, you name it, any kind of application you can think of that you could put on a mobile device you can create. And one of the great things too is the Enterprise Edition, as they talk about here, you can actually customize that application. The great thing about this is that when you actually acquire this product, the mobile application is free, and pushing applications to the internet and also to the mobile applications does not require it does not accrue any more cost, so it's all inclusive. In the lower left-hand side is something that's really been advanced a lot farther than it used to be. So right now we have something called document generation, where you can create templates and you can auto-populate those templates from any data source. So think about contracts, think about stuff you might be doing in HR where you want to do something like an offer letter. All these things that are time-consuming, that you'd have to create a document from scratch, and you go in and you're doing a lot of cutting and pasting, and what this will allow you to do is have these templates that are auto-populated, and then we can also, as part of that business process, after we generate the document, we can send it to the person, and that's where these connectors come in line. The connectors actually allow you to connect to other third-party applications and use the APIs. So a great example of this is using DocGen in conjunction with a DocuSign connector, so that if we need to get electronic signatures, we can do that. So think about purchase orders, sales orders, any kind of contracts that you might want to auto-generate, and then have the users go, or the clients go in there and sign. So a lot of different things we can do there. This is just the connectors. There's over 100 connectors to talk to different back-end systems, so you have that ability as well. Lastly, workflow analytics. This is something new that just came out in the last year, giving you the ability to actually be able to create dashboards related to any forms that have been filled out. So think about a travel expense report, and we want to have a dashboard to see where are all our employees flying to, how much money are they spending, what airlines are they using the most. There's just a lot of different applications with the workflow analytics that you can take advantage of, and if we have time, I will show you a dashboard that was created for expense reports, just to give you an idea of what can be done there. So first off, when we talk about the workflow part of it, the designer, as you can see on the right-hand side, we're doing this through the browser. I'll have some other pictures here before we go into the demonstration to actually show that to you. But again, this is a no-code solution. When we talk about governance, we have the ability to go back and see what stage the workflow's in. We can actually set some actions that are inside the workflow to actually give us more information, to keep a digital trail. So things we can do is we can write to a database and show what stages we were in. So there's a lot of different things that we can do here. And the great thing is, like I said, this is not meant to be a developer's tool. We're not writing code. And this is all built on top of SharePoint workflow engine. So a very cool extension of their technology to make it very simple and be able to do some pretty complex stuff. Like I said, we can automate almost any notification request, and for the demo today I'll be doing that. But if you take a look here on the left-hand side, we can drag and drop from the left-hand side what are called actions. So in this situation right here, what we're specifying is after the user submits something to a SharePoint list, we can take that, and in a situation where a leave request, which we're going to build today, we drag and drop a send email, and then we assign a task, And based on the manager approving or rejecting, we're going to send an email to the user saying you've been approved or you've been rejected. Now, what I'm going to do for you today is going to go beyond that. We're actually going to say over here on the approve side, we're actually going to put a calendar entry. We're going to create an entry in the calendar so we can have a team calendar. So if I'm a manager, I can see who on my team is going to be available or be out for jury duty or something like that. So again, so on the right-hand side, you can see the request is submitted. We can trigger the workflow to start. We'll send a request to the manager. Manager responds. This is pretty much your common workflow for a lot of different things that we try to do with Nintex, but we can get more complex. And before we get into the more complex scenario, let me talk about one other feature that you're going to love. There's something called lazy approval. So what lazy approval does, and you notice the workflow is identical, the lazy approval is just a checkbox option in this assigned task, and I'll show that to you today. The whole idea here is when the manager receives an email notifying the manager that there is a task for that person to be able to respond to, either approve or reject, instead of that manager having to go to the website or into the SharePoint and look at a task and say approve or reject, we can do that all by email. And we can do that using keywords. So again, on the right side, you see that it says we respond to a task by email. So that person that's being assigned the task for the approval or rejection can either say yes, no, approve, decline. There's a bunch of different terms that map to approval or rejection. You can also put in custom responses as well. So if you have some terminology that's being used within your organization, you can put that in there to have it mapped to approved or reject. So this is a great feature that managers love because you can be on your mobile device and just respond through the email and not have to be inside the firewall. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk about is what happens when you have a more complex type of workflow. I showed you just a simple case where it's a simple approval. Nintex supports very complex business processes that might have multiple stages. And in those multiple stages, you can have situations where on the left-hand side for this requisition, some administrator assistant submits an application for a requisition, and it has to go through 3 levels of approval: C-level approval, finance approval, and then we have a couple individuals here that must approve it based on the value of the requisition. So if the value of the requisition is greater than $10,000, it goes to this Dr. Hart. Otherwise, it's going to go to another individual named Bob Frost. So depending on this situation, we will send the proper notification to either one of these depending on the situation. And if it's approved, we let everyone know. If it's denied, we actually notify everyone. Now, one of the things that I don't depict here in this requisition is, what if we get to something like the finance department and they realize that the C-level person actually forgot some information or put something in wrong? We don't want to have to start this workflow all over again. And one of the things that's unique about Nintex is something called a stage machine. And what that allows you to do is jump from one level to another. So if you look at these vertical swim lanes, if the finance people found out that, hey, we need more information, instead of having to cancel this workflow and start from the beginning, we could actually jump out and jump back into the C-level approval and start from this point on and move forward. So what does that look like inside of Nintex when we start to get to more complex scenarios like what I'm showing you? So in that scenario, I was talking about, a stage machine or a state machine. You can see that we have the initial submit on the left-hand side. We have C-level approval. We have the finance approval, and then we have the final approval. Now remember, we had a condition down here where was it greater than $10,000 or not. If it was greater than $10,000, we assign what's called a flexi task for approval to the one person. If it's less than $10,000, then or $10,000 or less, then we actually go to another individual. And then in the end, we actually end in the right-hand branch. What's unique about this, and this is kind of unique to the Nintex product, is having this state machine that can jump from branch to branch. And it makes it very much it simplifies the very complex workflows that have multi-level approvals. This is, I don't even consider this one to be super complex because we can, we're jumping from branch to branch, but essentially is we go down a branch and then in that branch we tell it where we want to jump to next. So, if we jump to C-level approval, that's fine. Then we jump to the next level approval. But in the situation I was telling you with the finance department, if they require some more information based on the task that was assigned to them, we can actually make it jump back to the C-level person saying, hey, you missed some information, please correct that, and then we'll jump back and keep on moving forward. So this is pretty unique to this product and gives you a lot of flexibility in those types of situations where you might be doing something in a legal department, you might be doing a negotiation with a contract, you might be doing something in HR where you actually have situations where you're going back and forth and trying to negotiate, a final salary and stock options or something like that. So, you can think of a million scenarios where it's just not going to be a straightforward serial event where you might have to have negotiation going back and forth. We might have to generate documents, using document generation to, once we get an approval, we create a document and then we send that for signature via DocuSign. So these are all things that we can do using this thing called the state machine, which is really unique to this product. On the form side of it, when you're creating forms, again, we're going through the browser and we're creating forms. And another thing here is that we can publish the forms, like I said, to the internet, to the intranet, or we can actually take it and push it to a mobile device. So when you think of the cost of creating mobile applications, and for some of you that have done that, you know that we can easily exceed $100,000 just for one application. The beauty of this is that there's no extra charge, and you don't have to know that final platform. So whether it's going to Android or whatever device you have, if you have an iPhone, we can make sure that we create one form that's going to work across all devices. So that's one of the things that we end up doing in this thing called the Form Designer that you're seeing on the screen right here. So we have all the different form controls on the left-hand side that we can drag and drop onto the surface over here. And one thing about Nintex, it'll auto-generate the first pass of your form. So it auto-lays out based on what you have in your SharePoint list. And then what you can do is you can move stuff around. What I want to point out at the top right here is you'll see that we can target smartphone, Nintex mobile applications, tablets, and a bunch of different other devices as well. So you can either go generic and target a generic form that'll work across multiple target devices, or you can be specific. If there's some specific device that you're trying to target, you can also do that as well. So it's up to you what you want to be able to do. I'll go through this when we're actually doing a demonstration of the live product, which I'm going to show you in a minute here as we go through this. So once I go in here, I can create a form that can be used in my SharePoint site, but I can also create a mobile phone site, so a mobile phone form. So this is one of the things that a Nintex Mobile does for you. It's an actually application that if you have your phone right now nearby, if you go to your store and search for Nintex Mobile, you'll notice that Nintex Mobile is a free download. What you do is you basically authenticate yourself on the Nintex Mobile application on your phone, and any form that's been published, you will have access to that, and you can fill it out on your mobile device. So this is a really cool feature, because if you think about being on an airplane and you have your, you have your wallet or your purse full of expenses, and you say, you know what, I've been putting this off for a month, I should probably do this now. I don't even have to have connectivity. I can just fill out the information on my mobile device, and then when I get back to where I have a mobile signal, I can submit that expense report. I can take pictures of my receipts. If I have to do videos or anything I need, I can actually attach that and submit that later. So this is a really outstanding feature that's part of the platform, as included in the price of what you pay for this product. This is the enterprise version, showing you what you see or what the user would see on their device. So on the Nintex Mobile on the left-hand side, across the bottom is where you want to pay attention to. All the forms that I have, all the tasks that have been assigned to me, I have access to those to approve or reject those. I also have the outbox, which would be, I'd be using that if I was disconnected and filling out forms. Any drafts that I have as well. On the right-hand side, you're seeing the tablet version of this. So you can see that on the left-hand side, you can click and see my task. We could click here and see all the forms that we have available to us. So this is pretty cool because the Nintex Mobile is a free, like I said, a free download on any device you have, and any forms, like I said, that you have access to, you'll be able to take advantage of. Okay, the last thing before we get into the demo is the last part here is Nintex Live. So what is this thing called Nintex Live? This is basically your gateway to talk to your different types of applications. So when you think about software as a service, if you look in the upper right here, this is just a handful of the many that are available out there. So let's say you want to just do some stuff and connect to Dropbox, or pull some information and push some information to Box or Google Drive. There's just a bunch of different ways that you can be able to leverage Nintex Live. So there's connectors. Some of them are free. Some of them are third party and you require a purchase. But the great thing is here that you have a wealth, like it says here, a wealth of cloud services that you can connect to. So think about being able to push and pull information from Salesforce.com, Microsoft Dynamics. There's a lot of different things that you could do. One of the things that we can also do is, like I talked about pushing forms outside the firewall. So the Nintex Live is what enables that capability. So we can deliver anonymous forms or authenticated forms outside the firewall. So let's say you're doing a survey to some customers. You can send that to them so they can either fill it out anonymously, or I can actually target those people and say, you know what, I'm only going to let certain people fill out this form, so you can make it so they have to authenticate themselves. This link that you give them opens up the form in a browser, but they're not in your Active Directory, they're not inside your firewall. They fill out the form, they hit submit, Nintex Live takes that information and pushes it into your SharePoint list, and then you can activate your workflow based on that. So this is a really cool piece of functionality that a lot of people take advantage of. Okay, so let me go ahead and go into this demonstration. What I want to be able to do here is what I have here is a leave request. So, I have a basic form here. If I were to add a new item here, we get the basic form that comes up with with just SharePoint. Doesn't have a lot of complexity, very hard to be able to do any kind of customizations that you want to do here, unless you want to go down the path of like something like InfoPath or something like that, if you're more developer centric. So I kind of want to show you how you do this inside of Nintex. So when Nintex is installed, what you do is you go up to List, and we go up here to Nintex Form. And what Nintex will do is it'll actually take and create a generic layout of what it thinks you want to do. So what's cool about this is that I can go in there and say, you know what, this is not exactly how I wanted to lay things out. I can go in there and move stuff around. I can move anything I want to around. If I end up screwing stuff up, I can always use this little thing or use Control-Z, so I can go back to where I was. If I wanted to change title here, I can double-click and change the label here and associate the control. So anything you want to add in here, instead of just making it generic, we can say, time off description. And I can just come up there and I can make any modifications I want to up here and move stuff around. On the left-hand side are all the different controls I can add. Some of these controls have very unique functionality as far as using them on a mobile device, which I'm going to show you towards the end here. But one of the things that's really great about this is that I have all my SharePoint list items down here on the left-hand side. So if you look on the left, I basically had the title, the leave type, start date, end date, description, and any attachments. So these are all things that if I come in here and I want to add something later, like I can go up and say create a column. Let's say I forgot a column as far as this solution I'm trying to create. So if I needed to add something like a choice or something like that, I could do that. Once I do that, that would show up in my list right here, and I can take that and I could drag and drop that onto my surface here. So on this canvas, you can change, we don't have to have the header up here. We can do a bunch of different things. We also have the ability to have rules. So let me go ahead and show you how this rules works. We can do formatting rules and policy rules. So I'm selecting two items over here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a rule, and this rule might be the other. I'm going to call it the other rule. And what my other rule is going to do is say I don't want to show description unless the leave type is equal to something else other than others. So what we're going to do is go in here and set a condition, and what I'm going to say is I'm going to say here's the name controls that I have here, and this is just going to show you how easy this is to do. I'm going to say if the leave type does not equal other, that's the rule I'm putting in here. And here's a condition. So this condition is either going to be true or false over here. And if the condition does not equal other, I want you to hide these two controls that are highlighted. So when we go in and take a preview of this, let's preview what this form is going to look like when the user sees it. I'm going to go ahead and generate the preview. And this gives you an idea. No data is going to be saved when we submit. We're just testing this out. But what I want you to know is if I put in other, then description ends up showing up down here. So you'll see that, and you can see that we got things pretty much maybe the way I want them. So I can cancel this, and we can go back in here and take a look. There's a lot of different things I can do as far as formatting goes. So when we take a look at doing something like painting information, maybe we want some special colors in here. There's all kinds of things that you can do and move things around. Okay. I also have the ability, if I wanted to add something like the Nintex Mobile application, it will automatically generate a layout for me, and I can start with this layout, and this is how it'll be generically, and then I can go in there again and I can move stuff around as needed. So you can do stuff like that. I can also, like I said, with Nintex Live, I can also push this outside the firewall. This form would probably not be a good candidate for outside the firewall because it would be for internal employees. But the great thing here is if I wanted to make this an anonymous form, let's say, and let's just say I'm going to save that and publish that. When we go ahead and publish that, what it's going to do is it's going to give me a URL that can be used for someone external to be able to fill out that information. So here's the URL that you would use to give someone access outside your firewall for that. So if I were to open that in a new tab, let's just do it in a new window, you can see that once we publish that, that Nintex form is going to be available on the internet for someone to fill out. All the rules apply, being able to do other and fill out this information. So think about this with any kind of survey you might be doing or giving some users some access outside any partners that you do business with that need to fill out information and have that come back. You can do that as well. One thing I want to point out with that Nintex Live form as well is that I did it in an anonymous fashion right here by doing anonymous access. I can also suggest or actually force who should be able to do that. So you can have someone with some name at some domain.com. If you send that to the person with the URL, they'll have to authenticate themselves before they can actually fill out that form. Otherwise, it won't work. So we can do it by individuals, or if you look down here, if we're doing business with a company, another company, and we want anyone from that company to be able to fill out those forms, all we need to do is put a wildcard in front of the domain name, and when we save that, they will have access when they hit that URL. Really cool feature here. So, we've already published that, so let's go ahead and take a look at what this new form looks like. So here's our new form, and you can see that all the things that we've done there have been put in there. If we take a look at actually viewing an item, it actually shows up in the form as well. So you get all that plus printing to PDF if necessary. So whether it's editing, whether it's viewing, or putting that in there, your form applies. Now, how do we take what we just did and create a workflow behind it to notify a manager that we're going to take this time off and get approval or rejection. So what we end up doing is we go again up here to workflow settings and we create a workflow. This is how easy this is to do. We're going to do this all without code. So we're creating a blank workflow. We're starting from scratch. And you'll see on the left-hand side, there's over 100 different things that we can do, whether we're talking to Active Directory, whether we're manipulating Active Directory for onboarding, adding new users to Active Directory, whether we're reading documents, updating items. I mean, there's just a bunch of different things that you have capabilities to do. We're just going to go simplistic here. But one of the things I talked about in the original slide that I showed you was what happens when we want to integrate with the back-end system after this has happened so that we can initiate, something like an expense report payment or a leave of absence payment where it might be a paid vacation. So this is what's going to give you the ability to do that when we talk about integrating to different back-end systems, whether we want to talk to SQL Server, we need to make a web request to another application, updating a CRM record. These are all the things that we can do. So I'm going to go with the simplistic case right here. What we're going to do is we're going to actually assign a task to a manager, and I'll show you what that's going to look like. So the first thing I want to do is assign a task to a manager. This manager is going to have the ability to approve or reject this. So let's go ahead and see what it's like. We're not having to write any code here. So one of the things I'm going to do, since this is a demonstration, I don't want to really send this to my manager, is I'm actually going to put in my name here. But one thing is you can actually set it so automatically through Active Directory it's going to look and say, I want to send it to my manager. So I could add that in there if I wanted to, but we're just going to bypass that and send it to me. It's going to look me up in Active Directory, and there it's going to send it to me so that my manager's not going to get a real email thinking I'm taking a vacation. The next thing is a task description to put in here. So this is time off reporting. I'm going to put that in there. And then there's a couple other things that need to be done here. Remember I talked about lazy approval? This is how easy it is to do the lazy approval. All I do is hit this checkbox. This manager and the assignee will actually be given the option at the bottom. It'll say you can reply to this email and do that. So that's one cool thing. Let me also answer some questions you might have in the back of your head. When we actually notify the user of a task, they're going to receive an email. And so this is a generic email that will be sent to them. You can modify this to do anything you want to. So, the generic line is response required. I'm going to change it to response required for, let's say, let's make it a dynamic one. I'll say we'll go in here and say initiator's display name. So whoever is filling out the form, response required for that person's name. So that's dynamic. We can do that in the subject. We can also do that inside of the email. Another thing you should be aware of is we have the ability to set reminders. So maybe, if a manager doesn't respond within 3 days, we want to have something that escalates this, but we want to give that person an opportunity to have some reminders. So we might want to say 3 reminders in 3 days, and after that, if that doesn't work, we want to escalate. So one of the things that you can do is you can set delegation. So we can make sure that if someone doesn't respond in 3 days, we can say we want to delegate to somebody else. So these are all the different things that you can do. If I wanted to put in some name here or something like that, I could put in the name. But you have the ability to delegate to somebody else, and you also have the ability to complete the task. So we can say if after 10 days no one responds, we want to automatically do a rejection. So these are all the different options that you have to be able to control when we send this information to that actual user. So a lot of really cool things going on here. We can also edit the form that the manager is going to see if they're looking at the task. So I'm just going to leave this generic, but what you can see is we get all the list item properties at the bottom. So I could do something where I don't care about description maybe. All I care about is the title and the start date and end date. I'm not, as a manager, maybe I'm not really worried about this. So let's just say that this manager, all they require for their information is the start date and the end date and the title. So what we basically do is we can modify this form to have all the information. And again, as we were looking before, we can preview this and see that it's really doing the right thing. So this is what the manager is going to see. You can see they get to delegate if they want to, approve or reject, a comment if they want to, and they're just going to look at the title, the start date, and end date. So if that's okay with me, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say save. And that'll save that form that's going to be sent to that manager. And now we've pretty much got this. I can close this, and we're back to our actual task that we had. So let's save this task now that we've completed the task. Now the next thing I wanted to do was I want to send an email to notify people. So I'm going to say send. On the left-hand side, I'm looking for something send. We're going to send a notification. We're going to send a notification, and I'm going to configure this. And I'm going to go ahead and assign this. And instead of just putting my name in there, I'm going to assign it to the initiator, because whoever initiates it is the person that I want to actually send it to. So I'm going to tell the initiator, whoever filled this out, that sorry, you have been rejected, and for time's sake, I'm just going to cut and paste that down in the bottom as well. So that's going to be the subject and the email line. So I'm going to save that, and we're going to, just to make this simple, I'm going to copy this, and we're going to end up putting it over here on the approve side and just make a couple changes. So I'm going to go in here, configure that. We're still going to send it to the initiator, but I'm going to say congrats. And I'm hoping that they're not really sick, because I don't want to say congrats, but I'm just, since we're a demo here, I'm just going to put this in here. Okay, so I think you get the idea. Okay, so I'm going to save that. So now here's what happens. The manager is going to get a notification to approve or reject, and then based on what that manager does, we're going to see email notifications coming through. How does this workflow get kicked off? If we go into the workflow settings, what I want to say is whenever an item is created, I want to start the workflow. So that's what I'm doing right here. How am I initiating the workflow to start? You can either start manually. It can start when an item's created or when an item is modified. So we'll just go with that. Now, one last thing to enhance this is I'm going to add another action item called create item. So what create item is going to do is we actually have a calendar, and we're going to update that calendar with information. So let me show you how easy this is to do. This is something you'd have to manually do if you're trying to do this. So I have a leave request calendar that I created, and what we're going to basically do is we're going to put in a title, and we want to look at the title, and I'm going to just use the workflow context, and I'm going to take the initiator's display name. So whoever filled this out, it's going to show up as a title in that calendar request showing when they might be taking the time off. So the next thing we want to do is we're actually going to figure out what is the start time going to be. See on the left-hand side we have start time. And so what I want to do is I want to take the current item and take a look at the start date. So that's going to give me what they filled out in the list item. And then I'm just going to do the same thing down here. I'm going to do a list lookup. I'm going to take the current item, and then we're going to take the end date. Okay? That's all I have to do to be able to wire this all together. So I'm going to save this, and now we're done with our workflow. We can take it. I'm on the upper left-hand side. I'm publishing this as time off workflow, and I'm going to submit that. Now you can see it's publishing. So let's go ahead and see this thing in action and see what we can get done here. So this is a very common pattern for a lot of things you might do with this product. So it's been published. Now let's go ahead and take a look. Let's go back in here and let's go ahead and create a new item. And if I've done everything correctly, this is going to work. So I'm going to say Alex's vacation. I'm going to take it as a floating holiday, and we're going to take it from the 23rd, starting today. Let's go ahead all the way. We're going to take some time off here. I could add some attachments if I had to, like a doctor's notice, if we were doing something like sick leave and that was part of it. So I'm just going to say save. And then what's going to happen is, here's Alex's vacation, and if I do a F5, what we should start seeing is that the workflow, time off workflow, is in progress. So we can actually see the status of what's going on right here. Another thing too is when we talk about governance is having the ability to be able to view the workflow history. So one thing I can do is I can go in here and I can take a look at the current workflow and find out where it's at. So it's waiting right here in yellow. If it was green, that would mean that this task has already been done, but the fact that it's yellow means that we're waiting on something to happen here. So we're waiting for the manager to be able to fill out that information. So the email just came in. So here it is. So now we're seeing the email. Notice at the bottom, we're seeing that the lazy approval is enabled. You can reply on the top line if I want to, but I can also go ahead and take a look at the task. So let me go ahead and take a look at the task. I'm the manager now. I'm playing the manager's role. And so here's that form that we created. So this is what the manager would see. So the manager had the option to either reply, approve, or reject, or okay, yes, no, inside the email, or the manager can delegate here. But I'm actually going to go approve this. And I'm not going to put any comments there, but you can see here's the 3 items that the managers required, that they only wanted to see this. And so I'm going to say okay to that. And now we've completed this task. So what we expect to have happen, if we go back and look at the leave request, is we should be able to see where we were at as far as the workflow goes. So let me just kind of show you view the workflow history, and let's take a look just to give you an idea of how we can manage these workflows. Notice everything in green has completed. So this workflow completed. We completed the flexi task, we sent the notification, and then we created an item. So here's the email. Here's the email. Remember, I said in the subject, congrats. I meant to say congrats. You've been approved. So that was the email part of it. And then let's go ahead and take a look at the calendar request. Notice that we created the calendar request here where we created the title was my name, and then we actually put that in there. So this kind of gives you the full circle of what it took to build something like this, where once you understand how to use this product, and you can see I didn't write any code to do this, but I was actually able to get this workflow to do something that would be normally, and a lot of people do it through email attachments or through some custom code through a website, where here we're just dragging and dropping and having the ability to pretty much do anything we want to. The sky's the limit as far as being able to add things here that we want to be able to do with integration. Now, one of the things inside of that slide I showed you was being able to integrate to the back end. So that's when I was talking about integration, where we might want to talk to some back end system. So I might have to call a web service if I want to be able to integrate with the back end. So to be able to do that, I would just drag and drop that, and then we could configure our communication with SAP or whatever third-party product you might be using for payroll or something like that, and that would kind of round this out to make sure we could modify this from end to end. Okay, so that was kind of it for the demo. One thing I want to point out as well, when we actually, when you purchase the product, one thing that we do give you is we do give you a bunch of templates for you to start with, and time tracking, expense reporting. There's a bunch of different things that we do. There's about 10 different solutions that we will give you templates for, so you're not having to create stuff from scratch. We also offer training as well, so we will train you on this product. Again, remember when I talked about this in the beginning, my personal goal is to make sure that you are a reference for us and that you're a happy customer. So when you take a look at the top 5 processes here, think about where this might be used depending on what department you work in. And these are just examples of the top 5 based on surveys that we've done with different companies as far as how they're using Nintex. And, again, why you'd want to use Nintex, millions of people using this as far as, licensed users. A lot of customers, a really good partner network. It is also in languages. This comes up a lot as far as having the ability to be able to have Nintex in different languages, so we can do that as well. We can localize for wherever, whatever country you're in. We can make sure that the forms are coming up in the correct language. It's very easy to do. Nintex itself, the product has been localized as well, so you have that ability. So, some things to think about here. How do you buy Nintex? You have two options with Nintex. You can either buy it on a subscription level for as low as $7,500 a year. So $7,500 a year on a subscription will get you unlimited forms, will get you up to 5 workflows, and then you can continue to purchase different levels of subscription based on how many workflows you deploy within your enterprise. For those of you that have SharePoint 2010, 2013, or 2016, you also have an option to buy a perpetual license, which means you pay once and you own it forever, and then you pay for software assurance, an annual fee for software assurance that includes support. That gives you the ability to, depending on whether you're purchasing it on a capital expenditure or operational expenditure, that'll kind of dictate which way you end up going, whether you want to buy subscription workflows or if you want to go to something like a perpetual license where you pay once and own it. And so you have to kind of balance that out. And these are the kinds of questions that I can help answer for you as you start to get more serious about looking at this product and what it can do for you. One thing I want to point out, if you want to run a trial of this and you want me to build out some prototype for you, I'm more than happy to do that for you, just so you can get something in place to play with. So whether you're doing this on SharePoint online with Office 365 or SharePoint on-premise, these are the kind of services that I do with no charge to you, just to make sure that you're getting a proper feel for what this product can do. We also offer some jumpstart programs where we heavily discount our services, and we offer training and also services hours to help you get some of your major applications in place right off the bat, so you can see the return on investment. So again, if you take a look at this, you can send me an email. Let me see if there's any questions here. If you have any questions, I guess you could type those in now. I don't see any right now. But again, if you have any questions about licensing, if you have any questions about doing a proof of concept or what the Jumpstart program is, or what is the best way for me to get Nintex in without costing an arm and a leg, go ahead and contact me and I'll run you through that. There was a question here. Let me see if I can add it. I'm a developer and I need training to attend as it's possible. So training-wise, this is something that we can offer as well. So there are, a lot of different YouTube videos available, but if there's something where you're using this product or you're thinking about using the product, I'm happy to sit down with you for an hour or two and run you through this. So think about doing something like the Nintex trial, which is free for any platform. It'll give you 30 days to play with it. What I usually like to do is make sure before your trial you kind of attend a little deeper presentation than I've done today, so you really get a good feel for what you're trying to do. And then once you start your trial, you'll have enough time to actually build out, play with this product, and actually get a look and feel for it and let your other people within your organizations play with it. Okay? So let's go ahead and let's see. I don't see any other questions here. Let's go ahead and end this. And what I want to say is thank you for your time today. And also, again, you have my email on the screen right there. Feel free to reach out. I will be sending the slide deck to you with some other information. So thank you, and have a great day today. Okay? Bye-bye.